everybody. It's Kenneth Arthur back here again for Field Goals. I don't really have anything to say about the Seahawks specifically today, but more just some thoughts I've had recently about not just the NFL, but also how fans interact with each other, and on blogs and other communities where people come together to celebrate their favorite teams or sports, and then maybe like a larger issue in regards to that. A trend that obviously has been popping up in recent years on many of the blogs, at least that I frequent, is the idea that when something good happens, your pants have come off. Obviously, this is mostly males watching a sport with males, and then their pants come off. I don't know necessarily. It's kind of ambiguous. I don't know if the pants come off on their own, or if the person has to remove them themselves. I don't know exactly even what it's in reference to. Did they, get an erection and then they had to tear them off? Did they soil themselves and they had to clean them and wash them and hang them out to dry? It's sort of ambiguous, but it's still what most people would classify as being homoerotic. Because it's guys watching the sport and celebrating guys doing things, and then they make some sexual reference. It's considered to be homoerotic, and I find that interesting. Some people find it to be very funny, and other people are actually quite offended by it. And I've been thinking a lot lately. What makes people offended by this? Because there's a lot going on, a lot kind of things said, a lot of sexual things said. But really, I think the most touching thing, the most touchy subject of all of those was always the pants off or the homoerotic, which the pants off is sort of ambiguous, and a lot of my writing is not ambiguous. It might be straightforward and not even be homoerotic so much as it is just simply homosexual, because it goes, to that level. But that seems to be the thing that gets people the most, I don't want to say riled up, but they're like, oh, that's not okay. After one article that I had written and making a reference to, I think, dating someone else that was a writer, that wasn't true. That guy was engaged to a woman. I got an email that said, am I to understand that you're a homosexual? And I don't know what you're to understand. You can understand what you like, but we must understand exactly also what satire is, but also, that everything that we say is still a part of who we are as fans, and we can all choose to celebrate how we want to celebrate. I think that we don't even know exactly what the pants off thing is. For me, it's personally, like, I know, I don't know if it's a masturbation thing or that's the whole thing nobody knows. I always like to just think of it as you're so excited, you get so excited at once that your pants sort of explode, and you're standing there, like Tom Hanks at the end of The Burbs. Like, that's what happened in the greatest moment of your life when the Seahawks score a touchdown or Marshawn Lynch, runs against the Saints. That's how I think of it, and it's not really that homoerotic, but still, just the fact that you don't have pants on anymore. I mean, yes, it's pretty sexual. So what exactly would offend people? I'm just trying to think how that would offend people. And, for some people, it's not necessarily a homosexual thing, but any sexual reference. They don't think that, you should mix sex with sports, maybe. But, that's already sort of happening, right? I mean, because we do mix sex with sports. It's just we mix heterosexual sex with sports, and nobody seems to have as much of an issue with that. If you have the lingerie football league, typically that's always women, right? We don't have a lingerie football league with guys against guys, or, a halftime show of guys in lingerie playing against each other. But would there be anything wrong with it? Would that be an objection? And it also sort of relates to the whole idea that in America we are, pro-violence, but anti-sexuality, which is another issue that I find interesting, and how it might relate in this area. And then, obviously, you can even just state the obvious and say that some people just don't think homosexuality should be involved in sports, which I guess makes sense if you think about it, because when I think of the earliest forms of sports, I think of maybe like the Olympics in ancient Greece, And, what's less gay than ancient Greece, right? So that's another thing that I always find interesting because, in football, the only time that I can think of guys that I know or guys that I'm aware of that, put their hand underneath the undercarriage of a large man, 70 times or 60 or 50 times a game or a day is in football, and that's fine. It's nothing gay about it, but, it is not, nobody would say there's nothing gay about it if I just did it to my best friend, right? But, just beyond how we treat fans as they decide to celebrate, whether it's pants on or, some of my writing which goes to the next level and might say, make out with your friends and pretend they're Russell Wilson, like, I don't know. To me, it's like, with my writing, I say a lot of things that, aren't necessarily true. If I'm trying to do comedy, then it's exaggeration of the truth, with everything. But really, it's only the stuff that's homosexual or homoerotic that seems to bother people. Because if I say, I have Kelly Kapowski posters all over my room, nobody goes, I'm offended. You might say that's not funny, which is fine, but it's certainly not offensive. And I don't necessarily think that anything that you say is off limits as long as you're not hurting anybody. And so I think that the reason that we are still so bothered or offended in this sense is that, there's still a problem in this country necessarily of shaming homosexuality. And that's why, we have that shame that to the level where people, I don't think that anybody is afraid they might be homosexual. I think that you should, there might be times in your life when you're curious, or you might just be straight, but early on you probably know who you're attracted to, and people aren't afraid of that, but they are afraid that somebody else might think they're homosexual because they see that as a thing that they'll be judged upon, or that it's a bad thing, and that's the whole problem, is that we say that it's a bad thing. Even if you go around saying it's not a bad thing, it's still obviously there. These little tiny hints that go around and say, you can't do that. You can make all these sort of references, but you can't make homoerotic ones, because there's something wrong with being homosexual, and that's why people in the beginning, in the early on in their lives, if they're homosexual, they feel the need to hide it, and then that's what you say, you're in the closet because you have to be in the closet, and I think about like Jason Collins coming out as gay, and it's like, that's great, that's great for anybody now that's in the closet, maybe, that can think, oh, I'll just come out, and they can inspire, and it's one of like maybe the early process of making a difference. But I think the real problem is the fact that, that we have to have these coming out stories at all, because, it should just be a thing where maybe Jason Collins is 22 and in the NBA, and a reporter says, are you dating anybody? Maybe, and Jason Collins says, yeah, I'm dating this dude, Daryl, and he's fucking awesome, and I'm having a great time, and the reporter's like, oh, that's cool, whatever, just in the same way that if he said he was dating a girl named Daryl, that it shouldn't even be a deal, like, it's just like a thing, and then we don't have to come out at all. But the reason that we do have to come out, or the reason that, people, feel that they have to hide themselves, is because of all these other things. We're trying to get people to come out, when in reality we need to stop making people go in. And I think that just all starts with little things where you're not saying that it's not okay to say things that are homoerotic, especially in sports, because sports are so not gay, right? And that's where I think we need to start, because I know that I can't come out of the closet or influence somebody else likely to come out of the closet, but I know how I can treat other people, and I know that I can, be more accepting of other people, and hopefully let other people feel safe to celebrate how they want to celebrate. So that's just my thoughts on the whole thing, And, you know, I would never tell a person whether or not they had to be straight or they had to be gay. And I would never want someone to tell me how to root for my team or not root for my team, or how to write or how not to write. You know, because this isn't just about being gay or straight. This is about having the right to be who you want to be, as long as you're not harming anybody else. So that is my thoughts. And so in the debate of pants on or pants off, I say do whatever you like. If it's pants off, God bless you.